On today's show, we're joined by former Mavs assistant Mike Shed. We're going to talk about how a coaching staff handles a playoff series and how are they going to handle Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell? How do you prepare for somebody like that? And what is Mavs trainer Casey Smith doing this week with Luka Doncic? How is he dealing with a week like this? We'll talk about all that and more on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
Hey, Dallas Mavericks are NBA champions. Bang! Bang! It's good! And the Mavericks have won the game!
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, host of the Locked On Mavericks podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Subscribe to the show. And joining me, as always, my co-host, contributor, writer at Mavs.com. The coaching crooner, the One More Thing King. What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
Oh, today, Mike Shed, he's back. Assistant coach, 2006, right?
Started in 06, yes.
Started in 06 to 2020. The Shedder, the halftime winker.
Yeah. The halftime winking wonder. We'll give him that nickname.
Friend of the pod, you came on a while back, and I'm not going to lie, we had so much feedback about how much Mavs fans just loved hearing you talk about the Mavs and just your insight and everything. So we were talking about this week. We're like, who can we have on to talk about the playoffs and the series that fans would love, that can give us some insight on what it's like to prepare for a series? And it was Mike Shed. That's what we talked about.
There we go. Here I am.
Here you are, about to go to an Easter egg hunt in which you're going to gather more than 12 eggs.
Exactly. We're going to dominate the hunt.
Okay, so just off the top, Mavs fans, we're all just on edge right now. Like, our Luka's calf just has wrecked our whole life. All right. And so what is Casey Smith's week look like this past week? What has there been a time that you look back on to where a player, whether it's Dirk or whoever, got hurt right before a series or during a series, and how does that change? What's the coaching staff do? Just all of that.
Well, I mean, Casey's got an amazing staff. I mean, Casey oversees all of it. Deion Calhoun, Heather Mao, Casey Spangler, they're all intimately involved with it. It's not just on Casey, but I mean, it's a 24/7 thing now. They're treating as often as they can, often as possible. The strength and conditioning team with Jeremy and Jeremy Holsopple, they're obviously involved. Lots of massage, lots of ice, lots of stim, lots of what all can we throw at it to see if he can go. Calf strains are weird, because they're not, it's nothing definite, is where it depends where it is, how bad it is. He could still play with it. There's a reason they haven't said, you see all the people on Twitter that have said he's out already.
Yeah.
They haven't announced him out. He's, I think, listed as questionable. They don't have to put anything out until 1:00 today or noon today before. So there's still plenty of time. I mean, I've had 5 days of stuff. Knowing him, I would guess he'll try to play. But if he has to miss one in order to be better for the series, maybe he misses one. But I have no idea on that. But it's all hands on deck. Casey oversees it. I've always said Casey's the best in the league, and the rest of the staff is. So he's in good hands. He's definitely in good hands. And I remember when Dirk hurt his finger during the championship in 11. There was you just had to manage it. You just had to adjust. And I know with the coaching staff, they've got very capable. You got Spencer and Jalen that carry that load now, and just mix up different lineups, and because they're going to have to attack the Jazz. They can't sit on their heels and hope. Luka, like I said, we talked about, we can't use hope as a tactic. You can't hope that he's, oh man, I sure hope he plays, and not prep to not have him. Yeah. So
what? Oh, you got it, Nick.
When there's a big injury like this, How does it change or mess up, your game plan? You go in and I'm assuming you like have a certain game plan when you're going into a playoff series, and then an injury happens where you're missing a guy, and then Jason Kidd's been saying all week, well, we're planning to play with him and without him. Like, do you have to have like two different, is it a choose your own adventure where you decide which one you're going to go down, or how does it change your game plan?
Well, you just have both plans ready. I mean, because without Luka, you're going to share it more. And you're not a less ball dominant guard. You may have different matchups depending who you want to start. So they've been prepping for the playoff for 2 weeks easy. So they've had the people in the back and all the support staff, video guys, and all those have been getting everything ready. And then the assistants have obviously been, until the other day, it could have been Utah or Denver, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
So somebody was prepping Utah, somebody was prepping Denver, or the whole staff was collaboratively prepping both of them. And then the advanced guys are sending in all their stuff. So it's as soon as they knew who they were playing, then it was all hands on deck. And then since they played them so often, you've got everything you've done successfully and that hasn't worked. The hasn't worked stuff probably gets put on the back, and the has worked stuff you're going to try to amplify. So like we talked about before a little earlier, the Clippers series, we had played them so many times in the 3 years, played them like 21 times, almost like old school Spurs way back when Dirk was there, when you'd played them 4, and then you played them in the playoffs, you played them 7, then you played them again you'd played them 20 times in 2 seasons. You kind of say, okay, I know how we're going to have to go at this, and then it's executing after that. So they played the Jazz a bunch. They're going to have to deal with Gobert on Dorian. They're going to have to, I personally think you're going to have to go after that number 45 and get the ball out of his hands and make other people score. Now they can make threes in bunches, the Jazz can, but I think you got to make them drivers and 2-point shooters, and don't allow Rudy to sit in the charge circle.
When it comes to the matchup with the Jazz, I was thinking back to, the last 2 seasons. We've obviously had the Clippers, for 2 straight years there. And it's like, it's almost refreshing in a way. I was like, oh, thank God we got somebody else.
Somebody different.
Yeah. But you guys land with the Clippers last year. What was your thought around that? Like, if we could have truth serum here of where, if you could pick somebody else, you're like, man, I wish we had somebody else. Just how much, especially those last few weeks of the season, how much are teams, or how much are you thinking about, oh, I wish we could get this team or that team and all of that?
In all my years, when you try to manipulate, who you get, it usually backfires. And personally, so I've always been of the thinking that, hey, you got to play who's in front of you, and you got to be, because if you try the basketball gods will get you, and losing a game here and there. I mean, I can go back to my first year with the Mavs, 2006. If we go up to Seattle and win, we take Golden State out of the window. We go up and sit everybody. We lose, and then they win that night, and then and then we ended up playing them, and then we all know what happened. It's trying to manipulate winning and losing. It's better just be playing well, which the Mavs are playing well. Yeah. Short of the injury, they're playing incredibly well.
Is that why you think Jason Kidd kept Luka in that last game? Because some people talked about, well, you should sit him. And
me knowing Jason, he had a pre-planned, he's going to play 3 quarters, and it literally happened on the last play of the 3rd quarter. I remember back when we had who was the kid from Miami, the little guard that only was with us a couple years.
Oh gosh,
Dad's a baseball player.
Shane Larkin.
Shane Larkin got hurt in the last play of summer league practice. We were headed to Vegas, and he had a wide open layup, and he planted and rolled his ankle, and then he didn't play. And he came back late and just was off from there. You can't plan for injuries. It happens. And if people say he shouldn't have played, well, then doesn't have a game flow. You can debate it both sides. As a coach, you can't say, hey, he should have sat him earlier. He had a plan and it was going perfectly well until the last second of the plan. Yeah. And it was a weird plant. It wasn't even like something he stepped on somebody or it's just weird. So you can't really, it doesn't do you any good to say he should have sat. All those guys should have played and they had a plan, and sometimes plans go off a little bit.
Let me tell you about BetOnline. Best place to go check out series odds for all of these. Ooh, Jazz now a minus 310 favorite. They rose 10 points, which is not much, just a little. So I'm thinking more money went on the Jazz side of things. Go check out some of the other odds that are available right now. The Bucks are still a minus 1,400 favorite. That's like the biggest difference by far in any of these series. So go check any of those. They have a ton of other stuff.
Is the Jazz the biggest in the West first round?
The biggest in the West so far. They only have 3 series decided in the West because the Suns one hasn't come up yet.
Yeah.
But the Jazz are minus 310. The Grizzlies are minus 400 against the Timberwolves. That's the biggest one.
Wow. Okay.
That's the biggest one. So if you're feeling strongly about any of those, go ahead and check out BetOnline. It's the best stuff. It doesn't have just NBA. They have baseball all the time. You can bet on your Rangers if you're feeling good about them. They also have some WNBA stuff as well. Odds to win the championship. The Connecticut Sun, the Las Vegas Aces are top there. Go check it out. It's BetOnline, where the game starts.
When Dallas landed the matchup with Utah a few days ago, or gosh, I guess it was last week,
Sunday night or whatever.
Sunday night. What was your initial thought of Mavs versus Jazz?
I think they have regardless of Luka, Luka's going to play at some point. Whether he misses a game, I think he's going to play. The way Dorian's playing right now.
Love Dorian.
If they put Rudy on him, I think they're gonna put themselves at a disadvantage if they put him on all the time.
Yeah,
because Rudy's incredibly good as a defender, but he's I think it's more how the Mavs defend their 3-point shooting and how they attack all the switching, because they'll just switch Rudy onto Luka and then Luka's, but then they got to guard Jalen and they got to guard Spencer, and the Mavs have way more ball handling and creators than they've had in the past. And I when I heard the matchup, I wasn't like, Denver bothers me just how hard they play. Hard playing teams, you don't know what you're going to get. The Jazz, you kind of know you got your 2 focus points, and then you got to take away threes and make it tough. But I kind of like the matchup as presently constructed. So take that for what it's worth.
Yeah, yesterday in our preview of this series, we were asking each other, okay, who's the X factor? And we both kind of at the same time were like, it's Dorian, right? Like, it just has to be Dorian because he's the one that's going to be left open. He even said after practice the other day, they asked him, what would happen if they put Rudy Gobert on you again? He kind of just like smiled, his little like Dorian smile, and he's like, well, I'm going to get a lot of threes, right? And he just starts laughing about it. How is his development? Like, how did his development become? It's pretty linear, and that's usually not the case with NBA players, where he's literally improved points per game every single year, 3-point percentage every single year. I'm sure you worked with him. Like, how does that come about, and how rare is that for a player?
It's incredibly rare. I believe I saw yesterday that he's the only player in NBA history to go undrafted in his first 5 years, have that be the case. And that's just a credit to his his work ethic, his personality, his makeup, his character. He came in and he played center in college. He was a 4-5 that couldn't shoot, and he had a weird hitch in his shot, and coach, the previous staff, they did a lot of work, and he did a lot of work. I mean, to structurally change how you shoot and then to become successful at it at a high level is just a credit to how he is, what he's about, and I couldn't be happier when he got his new deal. And he's one of the guys that's earned it on every level. So he goes through these stretches where he hits everything he looks at, it's going to help the Mavs if he's hitting everything he looks at this series, because he's gonna get a lot of them, I think.
When it comes to Jazz specific stuff, game planning against Rudy Gobert. I mean, you've obviously been an assistant coach for 14 years. You've went against, prepped for a guy like Rudy for years on years. What does that prep look like? Like, what's the Mavs game plan against a Rudy Gobert? What are you thinking about this week?
You got to take away deep catches. Like, you can't let him run to the front of the rim. He's got to get bumped early. You got to try to make him play outside the paint as much as possible. And the way they use him in pick and rolls and stuff, you got to be physical with him, and you got to take away lobs. He's a big lob threat, and if you overhelp, and he's going to get lobs at the rim, so you got to take away easy ones for him, and you got to make him become a passer and he's got to be involved in that type of thing on the offensive end. And then defense, you got to attack him. He's got to be involved. As good as he is, he's got to be involved. You can't let him sit over there and be a weak side helper and not be. That's where the Dorians and who else for us would be. He could end up on Bertans. Any of the fours, they could put Rudy on the fours. So to avoid him being in pick and roll situations. Jason, I'm assuming Jason's really good at noticing matchup situations and running guys into screens, and he's got to be involved. He's got to defend. He can't just sit in the back. He can't sit in the background and play a drop and not work.
Yeah.
That's what you got to make him work on both sides.
When you say keep him involved, that's why we see the, Luka getting the switch with Rudy Gobert, then guarding him. We're probably going to still see that even though Luka's possibly out for a game, right?
Oh, you're absolutely going to see it. He's going to switch on to Jalen. He's going to switch on to Spencer. I mean, they consider him the best defender, so they're going to.
They do.
And he's shown to do a good job on switches because of his length. So he either makes you take a bad competitive contested step back, or he contested at the rim. But if you can draw him in and get extra help and then kick and then drive him again, then I don't think that's going to go away whether Luka misses some games or not. I think they'll switch him on to whoever's he's involved with, and then hopefully his length helps him.
How do you think Rudy will fit in Dallas next year? Just kidding.
I have no idea. Was he going to get traded? Is his deal up? Or what's...
Well, our mutual friend Tim McMahon.
Oh, jeez.
He said it on a recent podcast.
I think I heard it. I mean, Rudy's really good.
I'm sure he would love to play with Luka.
I'm about sure everybody would. You got to take care of your own house first. You got to figure out if you're going to be able to pay Jalen and all that stuff.
Let me tell you about Built Bar. I know on Saturday I'm going to bring a Built Bar with me to the stadium because I'm just going to need something to tide me over. I know I'm going to feel nervous, and I don't know why I'm going to feel nervous. It's going to be one of those crazy playoff crowds. It's going to be a weird early game. It's going to be like this weird afternoon. It's going to feel like when you go to like your like AAU games when they're like afternoon, or you wake up early and go to like a soccer game and you're like there for somebody else. These noon games are very strange. But you're going to need a Built Bar. You're probably going to need a Built Bar at some point. Go check them out. 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 grams of net carbs, 17 grams of protein in these bars that are covered in 100% chocolate. Some of them have marshmallow in the middle. The puffs, they're incredible. Go check them out. Mint brownie, coconut almond, a whole bunch of other different kinds of flavors as well. Go to built.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15. You get 15% off your entire order. It's built.com. Also want to tell you about Rock Auto, with the ever-increasing number of makes and models of cars. It's impossible for your local chain parts store to get all the parts that you need. How could they have all of them? There's no way that a warehouse can hold them, but Rock Auto can hold them, and they'll ship them right to your house. Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. They have everything you can need: brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, even new carpet. Go explore their easy-to-use website today. You just put in your car, the make, the model, the year, all that. They lay it out in front of you. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box? So they know that we sent you. It's amazing prices. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Rock Auto.
So for if you were prepping this week for Utah, as far as like kind of bigger picture things, I know you kind of touched on a little bit ago about getting the ball out of Donnie's hands. Are there some big things that you're watching for in this series? You're like, hey, this is, if I was Dallas, this is what I would do.
Well,
watch the 3-point line. You said that too.
Yeah, well, you've got to defend and be in their space. They've got to become 2-point players, in my mind. And then you have to, offensively, you can't let them load up. When they defensively are allowed to load up they're really good. And by load up, I mean your movement's low and they can stand in clumps and block paint drives and those type of things and funnel to Rudy. So the movement for the Mavs has to be high level. They can't let the ball stick on one side. It can't be focused on one handler. It's they've got to use their dribble penetration and their ability to, I mean, they got guys that can run. They need to move them. They need to move them on the floor. And that's kind of it doesn't have to be, a doctoral thesis on how to play. There can be 2 or 3 things that, hey, we need to do these 3. We need to move them. We need to run them. And defensively, we need to get them off the 3-point line. They need to become 2-point players and then execute it. You don't need to have 19 teaching points. It's easier. It's way easier when it's less.
Just to back up your point on that, the Jazz are 30th in the league in 2-point attempts per game. So they don't take them. So if we can force them to take them, then
they don't want to take them.
Yeah, they don't want.
They'll drive to get threes as opposed to layups. They did it all the time in previous years. They'd get to the paint with a lay, and they'd look for the kick. Mm-hmm. They'd look for the next pass to get the 3. They'd much rather shoot a 3 than any type of 2. So there you go. I didn't even give you a stat, and I gave you a stat.
Yeah, you can kind of say the same thing about the Mavs too, right? The Mavs have attempted a ton of threes, especially since the trade. They've become a spread it out team, and I've seen them, turn down a transition layup to throw it out for the 3. And the Mavs slow it down. They're the slowest paced team in the NBA. The Jazz are one of the slowest teams in the NBA. They're kind of mirroring teams except for how they play defense. But
I don't think you're going to have 130, 128 games in this series. I think you're going to have 90s, And if a team gets hot and makes a bunch of threes, then maybe it gets up. But it wouldn't surprise me to see 90-point games. Playoffs always slow down. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody's plays. They know all your plays. And it's really about taking away player tendencies. Like, what if you're a left guy, I'm going to make you go right. You're a 3-point guy, I'm gonna make you a driver. It gets down to that, in the prep and execution of it all.
That's why we were kind of laying out on the pod in the past few days about if Luka doesn't play game 1, what's the path for Dallas to quote steal one, without Luka, of locking down defensively and having the crowd behind you and kind of all these different things that you can try to.
You can't lie. Like, Utah's crowd is crazy, but the Mavs, when they want to, the Mavs fans can be just as rowdy.
If they show up on time.
Well, it's an early game. You shouldn't have been. You can't be at happiest hour that early.
Yeah, nothing else is open.
Guess it depends on what happens.
I do think they got the short end of the stick on the series, though. The fact that they're on NBA TV, the NBA TV game is disrespect.
Yeah, that's like
getting NBA. So if you don't have Bally, you can't watch it local.
Right.
Yeah.
It
sucks.
That whole thing is messed up.
And then they got 2 bad times. You got the first game of the playoffs on Saturday. Then you got another 3:00 out there.
The game 4.
You know, but can't worry about that. Everybody, they've all played early games and late games and back-to-backs. They'll be fine. They haven't played in a week.
Speaking of that week, what's this week look like? Like
A lot of like, I'm assuming, like most, they broke it down, they piecemealed it together. Okay, we're going to go through their end of games. We're going to go through their side outs. We're going to go through their main things that we're going to see 100 times. You know, you did some one day, you watched some film, you did some personnel study, then you brought up what they're going to do against you defensively, what you're going to see with Luka, what you're going to see without Luka. You had so many days. I don't think they're practicing today, if I read that right. They probably did a ton of shooting, I'm guessing, just so everybody's feeling good and in rhythm. And but they probably did a chunk of, okay, we're going to focus on Jazz offense today. We're going to focus on Jazz side outs today. We're going to focus on end of game stuff. And so they physically got to go through it, you know, live, and then come Saturday, and then they get to do it for real on the big stage. So that's what we always did. We would do a little bit we would usually have one main meeting, show a pretty healthy video of style, specific things we're going to see and what we're going to look at. And then after that, it would taper back into smaller film sessions, and then what you did on the court.
We've seen a lot of videos this week of guys, doing shooting contests and laughing, and we saw a ton of practices under Rick Carlisle where, Coach DA is doing the bell and trying to keep everybody loose, right? How important is that this week? Because it's just, you could just bog yourself down with all the prep and everything.
You have so much time to prep now that if you don't make it fun in some way, I think they got a good group of guys that aren't going to let that happen. But I've always been DA's the best. He's going to keep it lively. And I think they've done a good job they've got an energetic group, that I think they see the opportunity that's in front of them. The Mavs can win some series. They can. It's going to help if 77 plays, but they're capable of winning some games and not just making it a fun first series. You know what I'm saying? Oh, they made it competitive. No, I think they're good enough to win. They're good enough to win. Because the West, that whole middle group they're all on par, Yeah. So as long as the training staff and everybody gets some sleep at night, then they make sure their stim equipment and ice cups and heat packs are working. I think they'll be all right.
So, Tony Brothers. So yeah, we got to go there real quick. So Tony throws Jason out. Then it's literally a week later, the next Friday night, he gives Luka his tech. I'm talking to Scott Tomlin at halftime. What is this whole, how did they get a tech rescinded? And, all that, what's that process look like? And so just Tony Brothers, just officiating in general, Mavs fans, those 2 weeks were like, oh my gosh, Tony, and it's been,
he gets in a playoff series. Yeah.
Yeah. Scott Foster before. And all. Is it real that a team feels and I'm just using Tony as an example, but is it real that a team sees a ref walk out or they see his name on a document and they're like, does it affect you as a team if you feel like a ref has something against your star player or your team?
Well, I mean, they're human. So, I mean, if somebody goes at them a lot, they're supposed to not carry in that animosity, Yeah. But, I mean, there were times where, any ref coming in way back when Mark used to yell all the time.
Stopped yelling.
But Tony likes his moment in the sun, and you can say they didn't know he had 15. I don't believe that, but I think Jason earned his, and they were getting rocked anyway, so he earned his on the boot. But you asked about rescinding Keith Grant and whoever. They send Wyatt shouldn't have. There was no cursing, and it's the quickest rescind I've ever seen. It's usually like 2 or 3 days later, and it was like the next day.
Yeah, well,
they didn't have 2 days.
Well, yeah, that was the thing. Talking with Scooter of, well, it kind of depends on if they're going to work on the weekends. Like if there's somebody in the office over the weekend, and that was a Friday night. It was rescinded on Saturday, and he's good to go on Sunday, which was the game he got hurt in.
Yeah, life happens, bro. It happens. Life comes at you fast. What Ferris says.
What's the last thing you do in a given week? And when you feel like you've just prepped it, like we're on this podcast, feels like we talked about the Jazz all week. We're like done. What do you do as a team when you've seemingly done everything? What's the last thing you do? You don't have to travel, all that.
I think you do something fun in practice. Like maybe you do shooting contests, you play wiffle ball, you do something, or you just, hey, we're like they're taking an off day. I think because it's early tip. So I think you can either dial it, make sure, old school, you take a quiz, make sure everybody gets the right answers, or you, hey, we've done it. We've done the work. Everybody take a day off, get away from it. And then let's load it up tomorrow. It's kind of like, I know Phil Jackson used to go to the movies. He'd have the team show up, and then there'd be a bus, and they'd go to the movies, or they'd sit in there and they'd read a book. We did in the year the Spurs series when we had Vince Carter, and then one day we were like, the players didn't know. We got dressed like we're going to practice, and we went to a park, and we had wiffle ball and football, and we just went in the middle of San Antonio. We went and that was when we ended up winning down there.
Was that Rick's idea?
It's probably a collaborative Rick Casey effort. Don Kalkstein, I'm guessing. But those things can really give you a little motivational, hit.
Yeah.
So I think that their thing is, hey, we're prepped, we're ready, we're feeling good. Let's take Friday off. Or at least they're not doing open practice. I'm not sure if they're gathering, but the way it read, it was that there was no practice, or no media, I should say.
Yeah. No media. Outside of 2011, what's your favorite playoff series? One that just sticks out the most that you're like, I'm never gonna.
Ooh, that Spurs series where Vince hit the game winner. We win that series if what's his name doesn't get suspended.
Blair doesn't kick him.
Yeah. I think we win in 6 if he doesn't get suspended.
Ooh. Didn't they? Did they go on to win, right? The title? Or no?
Was that 13? I forget when it was.
13,
14. But that series.
Yeah.
100%.
That Vince game winner.
The crowd was amazing. You had a group of guys that sticks out in my mind. Just because then we went on the stretch. We went so long where we didn't get in. So
yeah, that was 2014 when they won the finals against Miami. So
they did go on. Hey,
yeah,
that's wild.
We went into Tankapalooza mode. There you go.
So the Mavs took 3 games from the Spurs. They only lost 4 more games the rest of the playoffs. That's pretty.
We got them ready.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
We got them ready.
You primed them. Is this Pop?
We primed them.
Did Pop coach his last game the other day?
I don't know. I don't think there's a clear succession. I don't know who's going to get that job.
Yeah.
We all thought it was Becky Hammond, and then
you would have thought Bud. You would have thought the guy from Philly. I mean, my thinking is Monty, but Monty's got it rolling in Phoenix.
Yeah.
I just don't know who that person is, and I don't know if he's just going to up and leave it. Even though Pop would be a guy to just be like, I'm gonna go drink my wine. Thanks for your time.
Peace.
But I don't know. I think he would have done it like then.
Yeah.
Like walked off the court, they lost. Thanks, guys. See ya.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't see him dragging it out. I don't know.
Wow.
I can see him coming back with a succession in place. Okay, I'm gonna coach, but
Mike Shedd's
Mike Shedd's gonna come on staff and take it.
Yeah.
Like when Donnie Nelson when Nelly gave it to Avery mid-year, I can't see him quitting mid-year, but something like that would probably, in my mind, be more pop than. I don't think he's just going to walk off into the sunset in June.
Yeah.
I think he would do it if he was going to do it.
Yeah.
The mid-year thing is less pressure, right? Because it's already rolling. Like you're just already in the middle. You don't have to deal with all the preseason like talk and build up and all that. Maybe an interesting strategy for them.
I have one last question. It's kind of not. It doesn't relate to the other ones, but I don't think I've got to talk to you after the trade deadline. And what was your initial thought of the KP Dinwiddie Bertans trade? Were you surprised that Porzingis was traded? Dinwiddie's fit, like how?
We've always been they have always been a fan. I've always been a fan of Spencer. They've always loved Bertans. KP had to go. I love him.
Yeah,
I'm a fan. He's great to me. He's
great
a great
guy.
It just wasn't going to. It wasn't going to work. For one, he can't play 82 games. He's not going to ever.
Yeah.
So he's a high volume guy. Luka's a high volume guy. They got along perfectly fine. On the court, it just wasn't the right mesh. I thought it had to go, and I thought they couldn't have got a better deal.
Yeah.
When they got those guys, I was like, Mavs won. Mavs won the deal.
Yeah.
And Kristaps can go and be the man at another place, which KP needs to be the man. I don't know where he can go, where he can be second fiddle. He needs to be the dude, and they got to get dudes that play well with him.
Was that hard, like working through? Is it accurate to say you had like kind of two different styles of, hey, you got to make this work around KP?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to try to mesh all that, It's because you're every day like, okay, I got to make sure we're getting all this, and then I got to make sure we're getting all this, and I wished it would have worked, because if he would have stayed healthy, maybe it would have been different. But they're both alphas wired, and I thought they had to do it. I was thinking they probably should have, and then when they got what they got, this team got better.
Yeah.
So the Mavs won that trade for sure. So,
well, Mike Shed, I really appreciate you. I think we just lost video of you.
No, I'm here.
Oh, here we go.
I'm here.
Thank you so much for spending time with us. And hopefully, you're confident Luka plays. That's all I care about, honestly.
I'm not a betting man. Knowing him for 3 years, if he can play, he's going to play. But the caveat being, they're not going to let him play if he can get worse. If they can say, you know what, if you got to limp a little bit, you're not going to make it worse, then we can play. If they say, hey, if you miss Saturday, that gives you another 2 days, you can play Monday, and there'll be even less of a chance that you re-injure it, I say he misses Saturday. My opinion is he will do everything in his power to play.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. Now, don't let that ruin your day. Don't ruin that egg hunt, But I think they got as good a matchup as they can get. And I think Luka's he doesn't surprise anybody anymore. But it wouldn't surprise me if 77's out there in some off-color Luka shoe and they're ready to roll. Big series for Dodo, big series for Jalen Brunson. There you go.
Huge. There you go. Mike Shed, guys. Thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.